This week on the Hollywood in Toto podcast, we share why you can't lay low when pop culture attacks in the worst way possible. We talk to a TikTok influencer with a really novel approach to covering politics. And we show you the most unlikely culture warrior in the modern era.
Welcome to the Hollywood in Toto podcast. Entertainment news and reviews without the woke Hollywood narrative. Free speech, free expression. Now that's entertainment. And here's your host, award-winning film critic, Christian Toto.
Before we start, I'd love it if you've subscribed to the Hollywood in Toto podcast so you won't miss a single show. And of course, give Hollywood in Toto a follow on YouTube. We'll be posting original videos there very soon. But for now, you can also see the latest Hollywood in Toto podcast episodes there too. Give it a try. The View could be the funniest show on TV, but we're laughing at them, not with them. Whoopi G and the gang are like MSNBC without that tiny little shred of journalism they play over there. Yeah, it's awful. It's also ignorant, mean-spirited, and chock full of misinformation on any given day. All those people hunting down misinformation, it's right there. You don't have to do any work. Just turn it on. Other than that, it's a delightful hour. I can't recommend enough. But recently, head viewmaster Whoopi Goldberg attacked Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Surprise, surprise. But she did it in a way that would be beyond the pale of decency still existed. Whoopi attacked the governor for a rigorously debunked charge that Florida is teaching students that slavery was a good thing for Black Americans because it taught them valuable skills. It's cherry picking at its finest, and it's so dumb it makes your head hurt. But that's what The View is. Cranking out stories and content and controversies that make your head hurt. Just listen.
We built the White House. We built the White House.
Yeah, twice. We built it twice.
We've been here. I'm tired of explaining it.
Yeah.
I'm tired of explaining it.
Yeah.
You know? And just so we're clear, we're not going anywhere. We've been here, Mr. DeSantis. Many of us have been here for generations. Can you say the same?
I don't think he can.
And by the way, I don't think he can.
By the way,
Don't you love that last part? What does she even mean? Yeah, some Black people in America date back generations. Some white people do too. Some Europeans. So what? What is the point? Oh, the dumb. It hurts. It really hurts. Of course, the blame here goes partly to Vice President Kamala Harris. She spread that whole fake news around, and the corrupt press didn't want to fact check her. What Whoopi said is just a natural extension of that. But now the governor is challenging her to debate the issue. Challenging Kamala Harris, that is, not Whoopi. That's a bridge too far. But of course, Harris will never, ever, ever debate DeSantis, and she already has turned down the invitation. It would expose her as a liar. And just imagine the word salad that would commence. But here's what DeSantis had to say about it. I am prepared to meet as early as Wednesday of this week, but of course want to be deferential to your busy schedule should you already have a trip to the southern border planned for that day. Brutal. DeSantis is punching back and hard, and that matters, of course. But he should have done so a lot earlier, honestly. Remember last year when those hard-left Oscar hosts said, "Don't say gay, don't say gay, don't say gay" from the stage? Well, that was another fake news narrative. I don't think he fought back on that front nearly as hard as he should have. But maybe learn his lesson. Who knows? Then we have Greg Gutfeld. Of course, he's the host of Fox News' Gutfeld, a hit show. King of late night, as his new book says. And he's fighting back, too. He's been labeled a monster for his thoughts on the Holocaust. The subject came up in connection with that DeSantis narrative.
Right, while they were hanging out in concentration camps, you learned a strong work ethic, right? Maybe you learned a new skill.
Did you ever read Man's Search for Meaning? Vic Frankl talks about how you had to survive in a concentration camp by having skills. You had to be useful. Utility kept you alive.
But we're also talking about middle schoolers here. And there's a lot of concern about what age people are prepared to understand complex issues. I'm not sure that 12 is the right age to start hearing things like, and when you were enslaved here in America.
What about gender?
Gender ideology?
Just let me finish.
I love how the liberal talking head on the show gets schooled on the age front when someone mentions gender ideology. She all but waves a white flag on the stage. It was amazing. Now, there's also an unhinged Twitter account called Decoding Fox News. Yeah, just imagine what that's like. And it's attacking him for the comments, but that's not all. That's not the only party attacking Gutfeld, just in absurd terms. We also have the White House. It condemned Gutfeld's comments. The White House. Insanity. Now, Greg dropped the shtick on Twitter for a minute, and he shared this thought. A note on sharing the risk. Why do this? Why punch back? Well, if I don't, who will? When someone falsely smears me of racism in a public space, I must fight back. Because if I don't, it's that much easier for them to do it to you. Smear merchants must be held accountable, or they'll do it to people who can't fight back. In my case, the lies were exploited by the White House. It must not stop until that's rectified. It's in the dedication of my new book, The King of Late Night. Nice plug there, Greg. You should always share the risk, for that's how you beat trolls and their canceling obsession. I'll do it for you. You do it for me? Deal. Well, that's where we are today. You can call someone a racist, an anti-Semite, or worse. You don't have to have proof to back it up. Matter of fact, you can have video proof that you didn't do it. And someone in pop culture, or even the White House, will double down on the attack, try to cancel you in the most vicious way possible. You know, it's wise of DeSantis and Gutfeld to fight back as hard as necessary to debunk those lies, but you know what? Whoopi and her pop culture friends will never be held accountable for what they say. And tomorrow, maybe the next day, they'll say something even worse. Our next guest threw out the influencer playbook, just put it in the trash. Link Lauren isn't looking for a fight, and he's not trying to pour gasoline over the culture war flames. I think we have enough of that. Instead, you could call him a Gen Z voice of reason. He comments on hot button issues for sure, doesn't shy away from stuff, but offers humor and some pretty sane insights. And wouldn't you know it, he's actually drawing a crowd with that approach. How refreshing. Now, he's chatted up RFK Jr., he's gotten the attention of NBC News, and he generates more than 20 million views a month on his various platforms, of course, including TikTok. But what makes him tick? And how is he going to approach the 2024 election cycle? Let's find out with the smart and persuasive Link Lauren. Link, thanks for joining the show. Now, you know, I really know TikTok best from my kids and what they show me, and they're exposing their old man to all the stuff that's going on there. And I see funny videos, I see a lot of hot takes, and I don't see a lot of meat on the bones when it comes to opinions, either cultural or political, but you're different. You've got a lot of interesting things to say. You're not just kind of shooting off and giving some quick opinion. It's really thoughtful and nuanced. And I'm glad you're successful, because often I get disheartened because a lot of people do the opposite. But share your approach to social media. What do you, when you approach a video, when you're thinking about a new video, what's on your mind? And is it hard to be thoughtful in a space that often doesn't reward that?
Well, thank you for having me. What I just saw on social media was all the influencers were doing either far left or far right, and they weren't really leaving any room for conversation or any nuanced conversation. It was kind of like scorched earth. You're either with us or against us. And I just thought, well, you can play into the polarization for views. It might be a quicker way to get views. But I thought, why not try and bridge the gap between the left and the right? Because even when I was growing up, just a few years ago, you could have a neighbor with one political belief, and then someone else is on a different side of the aisle, and you guys could all get along and be friends. But now it's like people don't even want to sit down with you if you're a conservative, or if you're a liberal, or if you're this. And it's like, we all got to come back down to earth. And so I try and find the humor in everything that's going on. I try and find a way where we can have common ground, commonality, and try and find interesting, fun stories that are going on in the news that I can do that with. Yeah.
We recently spoke to Jimmy Dore on this program, and he had a similar sentiment. He's a very left of center fellow, makes no bones about it, but he says, you know, my mother-in-law is a conservative. My next door neighbor is a conservative. I'm not here to hate anyone, which is obviously refreshing. And maybe that's the secret, part of the secret to your success, is that people are really hungry for that kind of sentiment. But, you know, obviously when you put yourself out there, there are people who will be naysayers, there are people who will be mean. And I'm sure you've gotten a thick skin already just putting yourself in that space and getting the incoming. How do you prepare yourself for that, for the people who say things that are pretty gross, pretty mean, pretty aggressive? Is it hard to kind of prepare for that kind of response?
Well, I mean, I grew up at an all-boys private school in Dallas, and I was the only gay kid. So I feel like when it comes to social media, I don't really understand crying over these comments. I mean, if you want to block someone, you're going to hear the most nasty, degrading things written about you in your comments online. But for the most part, I see 95% positivity. And the rest, I think a lot of people are unwell or they're unhappy with the system. It's not even so much you. I think, and I talked about this with Vivek Ramaswamy recently and some other political candidates, just about how Americans are feeling less patriotic, they're feeling disenfranchised and disenchanted. And so I think the unhappiness is already there beneath the surface. And if they just have a target to leave a nasty comment, then you're going to become that for the day. But yeah, I mean, even the people who leave negative comments and say the most despicable things, they're still getting you views. They're still fans.
Right.
I mean, I hate to say, but like there is this group now. I mean, it's gotten more and more recently because I realize I'm coming into the world of politics, doing it my own way as sort of like an alternative to traditional journalism. And we're in the most vicious, polarizing time in politics. And I'm coming in as someone who's new and I don't look like everybody else. And so I understand some of the hostility, but there's a group every day they come and pick apart everything I say. They leave the most horrible comments. And I'm like, you guys don't follow me and you spend more time on my page than the people who support me. And so you got to just take it all with a grain of salt. And yeah, you just got to get a thick skin. There's no crying in baseball. If you can't handle the heat, don't come into the kitchen.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, you've interviewed some big players here, including RFK Jr. Describe your approach to politics. You're not a typical person. You're not doing it from an extreme partisan lens. What do you think makes your view different, or what are your goals as far as when you do get a politician, when you're trying to get something that he or she is saying to illuminate something more important? What's the goal here?
Yeah, so my angle isn't partisan, even though some people say, you know, I'm not far left enough or far right enough. When you're just a moderate independent, that's never good enough for people. Especially, I think, when you look like me, you're expected to be super liberal. And then when you give a conservative or Republican a chance to speak their mind and you have a seat at the table, that's upsetting to people. But, you know, I always say it's easy to sit on the sidelines and fire off tweets. It's a lot harder to get on a campaign bus and schlep through Iowa with the presidential candidate and get in the room. And my whole thing is like, I just want to show young people, Gen Z, millennials, that you can get involved in the political process, because I know a lot of people are feeling down and disenchanted. And, you know, there really is no space between you and these people you see on TV. You just got to be able to get up and get out there. And a lot of them want to reach my audience, which is great. And I also want to talk with them. And so it's a great kumbaya coming together. But I never have any angle of like, endorse this person, donate to this person. And, you know, on social media, some people think when you're standing next to someone who has this political belief that it's an endorsement. And I say, you know, Anderson Cooper talks to KKK members, or talks to, you know, everybody. It's not considered an endorsement. You know, all these legends, they talk to people, but little old me, I talk to someone and it's considered an endorsement. But I just give them a chance to speak their mind if they want to talk to my people. And I have a good eye for producing content. Like I just did a campaign bus tour with Vivek Ramaswamy. And that was something I don't think they thought of, kind of like an MTV Cribs style bus tour, because I don't think people have seen a lot of the inside of a campaign bus or behind the scenes. And that's my whole thing, is showing Gen Z the political process and the democratic process and how you can come along. And I'm going to the debate in Milwaukee on August 23rd. I'm going to be doing a whole behind the scenes thing that I don't think anyone has seen much before, except if you watch The Circus or shows like that. And so hopefully you can show that to a different audience.
Yeah, and I think that transparency is almost always a good thing, to see, you know, how the sausage is made, or what are the other phrases they use as far as the behind the scenes, taking back the curtain. That's important. We things get too mysterious, and I think we get wrapped up in the fact that maybe it's a little bit too unclear, or we don't trust it because we don't see the nuts and bolts behind the scenes. But
right, and I'm not saying people should trust it, and don't just trust it because I'm out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, always look at everything with like kind of squint and cock your head a bit when you look at things in politics these days.
Yeah.
And I mean, tons of Americans are distrusting of the political system. They feel like there are two tiers of justice. They feel like this one person's being treated this way, this is being overlooked. And I just think, you know, instead of sitting on the sidelines and watching and posting videos, if I have a chance to get out there and they are inviting me to come out and be on the road with them, why not do it and see what's going on?
Yeah. You know, I'm I'm elderly compared to you. You're a youngin, and obviously you're in Gen Z. I feel like there's a lot of talk about Gen Z. It's this, it's that. This group is, all these different adjectives you can use to describe them. But you're part of that community, and you speak to them regularly. What is the media getting wrong when they describe Gen Z, if they are getting anything wrong?
I think it's hard because obviously we're not monolithic, so I can't describe all of Gen Z just like millennials or Gen X. But I think a lot of young people, they are hungry for something. They're looking for some type of purpose or something to do. And I think COVID came in and just threw a wrench in everybody's lives. And we're trying to pick up the pieces and figure out, okay, what are we supposed to do with our lives? We've lived through, 9/11, a major war, a pandemic. And I think a lot of young people are like, how do I feel about the world? And what do I think about politics? And I'm getting things on social media. And so I think they're looking for purpose. They're looking for a mission. And I'm just trying to show them my angle of how they maybe can get involved.
Yeah. And you mentioned how it might have been easier to categorize other groups like the millennials. Is maybe that part of what Gen Z is, that it's harder to pigeonhole?
No, I was saying none of us are monolithic. Like I can't describe millennials as one, or Gen X, baby boomers. We're all, it's hard for me. I'm not the spokesperson for Gen Z. I'm just one person. And there are people I'm sure who have bigger platforms than me, but there's nobody covering the primaries now in a bipartisan way. The other people online around my age, all of them are doing DNC far left commentary. No one's even had the balls to sit down with any Republicans and get in the room with them. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of an unlikely person at first glance to do that. But, growing up in Texas and then moving to New York, I've lived in two very different environments. Like, I went to an all boys school in Dallas, very conservative environment, and then went to NYU, where kids had like purple hair and didn't want to get out of bed in the morning because they were feeling anxious. And so I've had like two, polar opposites, and I feel like I offer a good middle ground to sit down with people.
Yeah. When you make a video, and obviously you want it to get more views, that's important as someone in your space. Are there other goals here? Are you looking at, gosh, I'd like to change some hearts and minds, or even just start a conversation? What would be successful for you if you worked really hard, put out a video, it got a lot of attention, a lot of views? What's the ultimate, if there is a goal there, you could describe?
Yeah, I think the goal for me is just to point out some of these issues in an unbiased way, because I'm not beholden to any network or any media conglomerate. You know what I'm saying? You turn on the TV, you're going to get one set of news and they're answering to their advertisers and their producers. You go on one and they're answering to their people. Me, I don't answer to anybody. And so stories I've been tracking are Hollywood rewriting films and trying to fit them into 2023 and what that has done at the box office. Yeah. I did a video the other day on the portrayal of women in media. And I feel like, it's either you have to be this bra-burning feminist who goes to your cubicle and works 9 to 5 and climbs the corporate ladder, or the other role for women in Hollywood right now is like you're a stay-at-home mom who has like 2 kids on each hip. And I'd love to see more nuanced, well-rounded women like the ones I know in real life. And so I just track different stories like that. I think I try and give bipartisan news, like some of the censorship stuff going on with Joe Biden, and I break that down. Like I said, because I'm not beholden to anyone, I can speak my mind. And so, yeah, I don't even have an angle so much. Some videos do better than others, and some you unexpectedly do well, and you kind of just roll the dice and go with it.
Yeah. You sound a bit wise beyond your years, and I mean that as a complete compliment. At the same time, you're a young person, and you're connecting with your audience. What have you been taught, just reading comments? And I know some of them are silly, some of them are rough, but I'm sure some of them are very thoughtful and interesting and engaging. What is your viewers, what have they taught you?
One of the main things I've learned is so many people in LA and New York fly over the rest of the country. They fly over these states where, you used to have great industry and businesses and factories that are, many of them, empty now and unkempt. And these elite in Hollywood or in the entertainment industry, they don't really take into account those people. And my greatest audience is like a mom in Nebraska just trying to put food on the table, or someone in Des Moines, or someone here. And I think those people have been undervalued, and speaking to them every day, they say, we don't hear about ourselves in the media, or I'm just a regular person and I don't see myself when I turn on the news or anything that's going to help me and affect me. And so that's what I've learned, is that every American, every person has value, even if it's just someone who is barely on social media, is just a bystander and watching. They have value. They're smart. They have their own opinions. They're digesting their own news. And so you can't write people off just because they don't fit into that mold of like CNN or a major network of who they're representing on their shows. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that from time to time, Hollywood will tap into that sentiment, that crowd, that audience, and the results are rather spectacular, but it doesn't happen often enough. When I think about, for lack of a better phrase, you could call yourself an influencer. It's sort of the name that's given to people who are on social media and getting a big audience. If someone came to you and said, I'd like to do what you're doing. I like your voice, but I've got my own thoughts. I want to be out there. I want to make videos. I want to be part of the conversation. What would you advise them to do, or how to steer that whole direction?
People ask me about this a lot. My best piece of advice is to start posting. If you have a decent phone with a camera and a Wi-Fi connection, you better start posting. I think a lot of people, they want to post a few videos and they can't keep it up. And it's like, I've done over 1,200 videos, and just now in the past few months I've been invited out to work with Kennedys or political candidates. It's like, you couldn't have seen that then, right? And your quality is going to improve. The way you articulate yourself is going to improve. The rapport with your audience is going to grow. But I think some people are lazy. They think they get one viral video and the audience is going to stay there. And it's like, you got to post every day. You got to respond to comments. You have to be engaged. You're going to have to do your live streams. And I think a lot of people don't want to do that. I've even seen recently, and some of them follow me, and so I won't call them out, but there have been A-list stars and people on TV who tried to come into the social media space, and some of them have followed me, and I've developed a little messaging back and forth relationship with them, and I've seen them try to get involved in kind of this social commentary culture, commentating that I do, and they can't keep it up. It's like, you got to post every day, you have to engage with people, and if you're waiting for something great to happen, you're waiting, for the wrong reasons. You just got to start posting and every day post and keep up.
Yes, persistence plus patience, but neither is easy. But that is part of the key to success. Now, I think I'm legally obligated to ask you about the Barbie movie. I don't know if you've seen it, or maybe you just can comment on the cultural conversation around it. Take either one and have at it.
So I haven't seen the Barbie movie yet. We looked for tickets a little too late. Every single theater was sold out. We tried to go to Oppenheimer. That was sold out. I was saying, I hope the Oppenheimer movie doesn't bomb. But yeah, no, I haven't seen Barbie yet. I've heard actually pretty good things from friends of mine. They say it's fun, it's lighthearted, and it's obviously smashing it out of the park at the box office. And of course, people are looking for air conditioning in the summer. They're looking for some place to take their kids, to go as a family. So I'm not shocked that the movie is doing well. And of course, some people think maybe it's gone too woke or it's gone too far. And I was making some jokes like, are they going to make a Gloria Steinem feminist Barbie? What are they going to do with Barbie? But people seem to like this story. And so I haven't seen it yet. I don't want to speak out against it. I always try to keep it real and say, I'm going to give it my fair critique when I see it. But power to them, more power to them. I'm sure Mattel is happy. They're cashing some checks right now, because I thought people had kind of moved on from Barbies, and maybe they're going to have a resurgence.
Yeah, I thought it reminded me a little bit of the Super Mario Brothers movie, which was a smashing success. And I think the fact that it connected multiple generations was part of its appeal. You grew up in the 80s and the 90s, 2000s. There's still new Super Mario Brothers games now. So I think that maybe that was part of the success, that it's just multi-generational. And I think that Barbie speaks to different people in different ways.
Also, how many Mission Impossible movies are you going to do? Like Tom Cruise, I love you. Scientology, don't make a hate website for me. But, how many Mission Impossible? It's like, he's jumped out of planes. He's jumped off of cliffs. He's like parachuted out of an elephant's ass. Like, he's done everything, right? So what more are we going to see in a Mission Impossible movie? That is not exceeding expectations. And, the only other options that came out are Oppenheimer and Barbie. And then it's going to be a drought for a while because of the strike and everything being pushed. So, what else are people supposed to go see in the heat of the summer? And so shout out to Barbie. They did an incredible marketing campaign. I read they maybe spent $150 million on a marketing campaign. Don't hold me to those numbers.
No, I heard something similar, and the money well spent. Honestly, I think the anticipation that they generated.
Everywhere. even the Google homepage, you search something, it was Barbie. You go on here, it's Barbie. I've seen in other countries, they have 3-dimensional beings that walk through the town that look like Barbie. I mean, it's just out of control. And yeah, so they knew what they were doing. And of course, some people aren't going to be happy with it. And I love having an open dialogue. And I'm sure they have made it 2023 friendly and taken into account some of those things. You know, I was talking the other day about the Sex and the City reboot, and I don't know if you've seen that, the show, and Just Like That. And I've never seen a show tank itself so hard trying to fit into 2023 norms. And, you know, we're supposed to believe that Carrie, Samantha, Charlotte, Miranda, 4 white women who had no friends of color 20 years ago, just they wake up in 2023 and suddenly it's the United Nations. They've got like Black, Indian, Muslim, Hispanic, Latino. And it's like, I lived in New York and had an incredibly multicultural group of friends, but it's not that much, you know?
Yeah.
When all these women change. And so it's like all these shows are trying to fit into the diversity. And, you know, I hate to say it, but they are checking some boxes and they do have to answer to investors and people like that. And so I'm sure people have that critique of Barbie. Like there was never a trans Barbie before, but hey, if they want to do a trans Barbie now, what's up? And I remember I used to go out to clubs in New York. I used to go to this party, Holy Mountain, and Hari Neff would be there sweating, dancing, and kind of in the mix. And now Hari Neff is, I think, the trans Barbie in the movie Barbie. And so it's great to see that trajectory. I'm happy for anybody, you know, from back in my wannabe club kid days in New York 2 years ago. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, so shout out to them. Shout out to the success of it. And maybe I'll get a chance to see it. I'm kind of hoping it'll just come out on streaming, to be honest.
It does come out sooner than you expect, but I think they'll let this one linger a few more weeks.
Oh, they're going to let it ride just like Sound of Freedom, because they didn't expect Sound of Freedom to do so well. And now it's like, oh, well, we can get people to go to the theaters and see it, and it's finding an audience. So the one I think that'll hit streaming soon is Mission Impossible, because that is flopping.
Yeah, very surprising. And Tom Cruise is seemingly could do no wrong after Top Gun Maverick. But you're right. I think you nailed it. There's nothing that surprising, that engaging, that different this time around.
Even Top Gun Maverick, I know it grossed a ton of money at the box office, but Top Gun Maverick didn't come out of the gate, I think, as hot as they thought it was going to. And I did see Top Gun Maverick, but Top Gun Maverick was kind of like a continuous slow roll at the box office. And I don't think it exceeded $1 billion like they thought it was going to, but it didn't come out the gate being so beloved. Like the new Top Gun didn't even really have a plot. Like I don't even think they said what country they were at war with or what they were
It's
doing.
the mystery country. You know that one. We hate it.
Right. They were trying to be so politically correct. They had no country, no real enemy. It was kind of just a lot of bravado and nostalgia.
Yeah. Well, it worked, and it did have legs. I will say that. And I'm very curious to see if Barbie has the legs. We know Miss Robbie does, but I'll have to wait and see if the film does.
It's like, I was surprised to hear that yesterday, Monday, at the box office, Barbie did so well too, because I thought, okay, it's going to have a smash weekend, and then it's going to drop. But maybe it can keep going and sustain. You know, I read that the marketing budget was a separate budget than the filming budget potentially, and so they have a lot of money to recoup. And I'm sure they'll have done that within the next 24 hours.
Yeah, and I think right now the curiosity factor, it's become such a buzzworthy item that even if you weren't interested, you think, oh my gosh, I read the box office, I got to see it. There is kind of a cultural sway there. Link, before I let you go, one last question. You're having a lot of success on social media. Do you have dreams of a more traditional career, like stand-up comedy, like a sitcom, getting into a more I guess you could say 20th century Hollywood product? Or do you see yourself as more of a digital creator and really enjoying the space, leveraging what you can and just growing in there?
Well, I feel like the misconception is that social media is not the mainstream, because I mean, look at Tucker Carlson on Twitter. He's outdoing every network. But yeah, no, I come from that performance background. You know, I was in a show last year at Carnegie Hall after Stephen Sondheim passed, and the show ended up being sold out. So I have that performance in me, and that's kind of what I've always done. And now I'm just sort of parlaying it into this political field. And so, you know, I'd love to be on other shows. I have no interest in acting or doing character work, because I just love being myself. And I don't think there are going to be any roles anytime soon. everything's shut down because
That's right.
But no, I just want to keep building what I'm doing and be methodical and slow. And you don't want to outgrow your audience because they're getting to know me and they're trickling in every day. And so I just want to stick with what I'm doing and do one thing well.
Yeah.
I think trying to expand and be an octopus is not the best plan.
Gotcha.
But I get what you're saying for sure.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting, but we're living in a brave new world, and this could be the most successful, most profitable, most engaging way you could tell your story your way. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure. I mean, I think, I was covering a lot of the Don Lemon scandal when that was going on, when Don Lemon was moved to the morning. And then there were all those rumors that he was in beef with people and the ratings were low. And people were writing me saying, you're getting more views a day than Don Lemon's show. And so with that comes responsibility. It's like social media is the new mainstream. Most people are scrolling vertically to get their news. So, but I'd love to pop up on Fox and be on other shows as well and just be myself.
Excellent. And by the way, I am a right-leaning soul. My wife is very liberal, so I like speaking to folks like yourself who bring people together. I think that's an important service beyond the wisdom and beyond the wit that you bring to the presentation. But thank you, Link, for joining the Hollywood in Total podcast. You can follow Link on TikTok and Twitter. He's at It's Link Lauren on both, or you can go to Instagram and you can see his post there via i.m.link. Just Google him. You know how to find him, but just in case you need a quick tip, there you go. But Link, thank you for making social media smarter.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Before we go, I'd like to share why Dr. Drew Pinsky, Dr. Drew, is suddenly a really valuable asset in the culture wars. We've known him for decades on Loveline. He's done a variety of projects, reality shows, different radio shows, podcasting, you name it, he's done it. But he's not political. He doesn't pledge allegiance to any one party. He hates digital fights. He's seemingly got a thin skin. I think he's admitted as much on air. But his eyes were wide open during the pandemic, and he didn't like what he saw. If your eyes were wide open too, you know exactly what that means. So now Dr. Drew tries to interview canceled experts on his media platforms. That includes Ask Dr. Drew, the Dr. Drew podcast, the Adam and Dr. Drew show. When does this guy sleep? But in recent months, he's been fighting. Doesn't like to fight, but he's doing it all the same with those YouTube censors. Last year, they nabbed him for telling people he had a harsh reaction to the J&J vaccine. He did. He's a doctor. He's not lying. But apparently that's a thought crime. So YouTube punished him. Now YouTube is punishing him again, but this time the YouTube overlords, they won't even tell him why. That's how totalitarian regimes work. They punish you, they censor you, and the best part, if they keep it vague, then you'll self-censor moving forward. It's brilliant. Brilliantly evil, but it's brilliant. Dr. Drew is fighting the good fight against censorship, trying to get those voices out there. Let the people decide. Why not, right? He's in favor of more information, not less. More debate, not less. For those reasons, he's invaluable, and he's probably the most unlikely culture warrior around. And we need plenty more like him. Good on you, Dr. Drew. Well, that's it for this week's show. Thank you to Radio America for having me as part of their very cool podcast lineup. And while I have your ear, I'd love it if you'd visit HollywoodInToto.com. It's updated 7 days a week, and it gives you the scoop on what's woke and what's worth your hard-earned cash. See you next time.